America, we got to get back to doing what's expected of us as free citizens in this democracy. That means being tolerant, being respectful, staying informed, and being engaged. I'm former Congressman Joe Walsh. Follow me here and join the millions of Americans who are renewing their social contract with each other. The social contract, it's on us. Hey, Thursday, thank you for joining me. Hope you've had a good week. Hope your Thursday is off to a good start. I've got a conversation coming up in a few minutes here that I had with Vermont Senator Peter Welch, former colleague of mine in the House. He's a Democrat. We talked about the state of small businesses in America right now, especially the difficulties that small businesses are facing with Trump's tariff madness, and some of the fees that make life really difficult, some of the fees that Visa and MasterCard throw down on our small businesses all over the country, which make life really, really difficult for small retailers in this country. We'll have that conversation with Vermont Senator, Democrat, one of the real good guys in the Senate. He and I were in the House together. He was on the other side of the aisle, Democrat. I was a Republican, but we worked together on some things. So looking forward to that conversation coming up in just a few minutes with Vermont Senator Peter Welch. But I need to get something off of my chest. Hello, Kiko. I need to get something off of my chest right now. Just one thing, TikTok, I need to get off of my chest right now. It's really important. I think it's so damn important that Democrats acknowledge the truth about Joe Biden. I think it matters. I think it will matter to voters. I think it's really important for Democrats to do. Look, let's be clear. My former political party, the Republican Party, is a cult. It's a cult. I've said that for a long time. I'm not the only one to say that for a long time. Today's Republican Party is a cult. What does that mean? That means that to be a Republican today, you must pledge fealty to Donald Trump. Doesn't matter where you stand on any other issue. In today's Republican Party, it doesn't matter where you stand on a public policy issue. The only thing that matters in today's Republican Party is, where do you stand on Donald Trump? And you've got to support Trump to stay in the Republican Party. And the more enthusiastically you support him, doesn't matter where you are on any issue, the more enthusiastically you support him, the higher, the better you're standing in the Republican Party. If you're a Republican and you speak the truth about Donald Trump, you're banished from the party. If you're a Republican and you criticize Donald Trump, you're gone. You're banished from the party. There's no room for criticism. You can't oppose Donald Trump and be a viable Republican. You just can't. I was a Republican my whole life. Very conservative Republican. A Tea Party Republican. The minute I came out publicly against Donald Trump 7+ years ago, I was done. I was done as a Republican. And there have been a handful of other Republicans who've gone through the same thing. Today's Republican Party is a cult. You cannot speak the truth about the leader of the cult and stay in the party. You can't. You just cannot criticize the cult leader and stay in the party. You can't. The Democratic Party isn't a cult. And the Democratic Party right now has a great opportunity to prove that once again, to show voters in America that they're not a cult, not like the Republican Party. They can criticize their leaders. They can criticize their presidents or former presidents. Democrats have an opportunity right now, I think a really important opportunity, to distinguish themselves from the cult that is the Republican Party. A lot of shit, a lot of crap, a big book this week coming out about Joe Biden, that it was just doggone clear late 22 by 2023 that he had slowed down, that he just was really not able to do the job, and certainly not able to run for another 4 years. A lot of talk right now, right? That Biden had slowed down and that people around Biden knew it and people around Biden protected him. And a lot of Democrats in real time saw this and didn't say anything. And again, now big book coming out this week, making very, very clear that Biden got to the point where he was just too diminished to fully do his job and too diminished to certainly run again. It's important for Democrats to acknowledge this truth. It's important for Democrats to speak the truth about Joe Biden. Again, Republicans could and would never do this. Republicans will never do this. There's this guy that goes on CNN all the time. What's his name? Scott Jennings. And Scott Jennings on CNN loves to say that it was the greatest cover-up ever. Democrats knew that Biden was senile and couldn't do his job, and they covered it up. Democrats knew he was unfit, and they covered it up. That's all bullshit. Biden wasn't senile, and Biden still did his job. But Scott Jennings calling the whole thing a cover-up. Like all Democrats knew that Joe Biden really wasn't acting like the president. Somebody else was acting like the president, and all Democrats knew this, and they didn't say anything. And Jennings, who's become MAGA because it pays well, says this is the greatest cover-up of our time, utterly ignoring an opportunity for Democrats to acknowledge the truth, to not be and sound like politicians, to say that, you know what, Joe Biden had a hell of a first term, but you know what, by 2023, it seems pretty clear he really shouldn't have even thought about running again, and maybe he wasn't capable of doing the whole job, and you know what, we should have been more open and honest and transparent about that. Could you imagine if Democrats spoke that truth? Juxtapose against a Republican Party that can't even utter one critical word about Donald Trump, or they're banished for good. Democrats need to acknowledge this truth about Biden and then move on. Voters want to see this. Voters, I find, are screaming out for Democrats to be real people. Don't be politicians. Don't sound like politicians. And we look, we know the deal, right? We know what a Democratic politician would say when it comes to Joe Biden right now. They'd give the political answer. Well, we had no idea, and President Biden got a lot done, and we need to look into it. We need to move on. We need to look forward. Just ignore the question altogether. Excuse me, Democratic Senator. Was Joe Biden up to the job in 23 and 24? Big book coming out this week that says he wasn't. We need to move forward. We need to focus on the needs of the American people, blah, 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 blah. That's not what Democrats need to do right now. That's not what Democrats should do right now. Democrats should be real people. And a real person reacting to what we're learning about Joe Biden, yeah, man, he messed up. The people around him messed up. He had slowed down, and they kept him away from meetings, and he only worked certain hours during the day. Still got a lot done, but man, he slowed down. He wasn't always all there. And there's nothing more important than being honest and transparent with the American people when it comes to the mental and physical condition of our president. Doggone it, we should have known that. That's not right. I wish we'd all known that. And I wish, respectfully, President Biden, I wish he'd decided back in 2022 not to run. Huh? How about Democrats just sound like regular people? This is an opportunity for Democrats to speak the truth about Joe Biden and then move on. We mucked up. We screwed up. We should have been more honest and open about President Biden's condition. The Democratic Party should have encouraged Joe Biden to announce earlier that he wasn't running for re-election so that we could have had a vibrant primary season to oppose Donald Trump in the fall. That's not hard to say. That's honest. Be honest. Republicans aren't. Republicans can't be honest about Trump. I know the Democratic Party's not a cult. All I'm saying is this is an opportunity once again to prove it, to speak the truth about Biden. Respectfully, but honestly. Voters will appreciate it. Voters want Democrats to be authentic, not to be politicians. So now there's a big deal right now. Big expose about Biden. Oh my God, he wasn't all there in 23 and 24. Well, Democrats, here's an opportunity to just be authentic and not be a politician and speak the truth. I wish we'd done better. I wish the party had done better. Joe Biden had a hell of a first term, but I wish we'd handled that final year and a half better. Is that so difficult to say? Today's Republican Party is a cult. If a Republican criticizes Trump, they're gone. Hey, Democrats, take this opportunity to prove once again to the American people that the Democratic Party isn't a cult, that Democrats can criticize their leaders. Democrats can criticize their presidents. Democrats can speak the truth about their leaders and their presidents, unlike Republicans. Democrats, it'll be refreshing. Voters will appreciate it. And it will enable you to then move on and talk about the issues you want to talk about. But Democrats, you mucked up in 23 and 24. The whole thing was handled poorly. You got an opportunity now to fix it. Be honest. That's all. Be honest. Don't be a politician. speak the truth, acknowledge the truth about Joe Biden, and then move on. Hey, I sat down yesterday with Vermont Senator Peter Welch. Peter Welch has been a champion for small businesses in this country for a long, long time. Back in his days in the House when he and I served together, and these past number of years in the Senate, I wanted to specifically talk to him about Trump's tariffs, the impact on small businesses, and the stuff that Visa and MasterCard are doing to our retailers and small businesses. We sat down yesterday. Here's that interview. Have a listen and enjoy. Hey, former Congressman Joe Welch back with you, and I'm excited because I'm joined by a long time ago former colleague of mine. Now he's in the august Senate, the junior senator from the state of Vermont, Peter Welch, Senator Peter Welch. Peter, my friend, it's so good to see you. And I say this to people all the time. You were and still remain one of my favorite Democrats back in my House days. And I love everything you do. I love what you're doing. It's good to be with you, my friend. I want to get into a specific piece of legislation that you're co-sponsoring, but I want to start with kind of small business because that's really what this thing relates to. Give me your read right now in this country on the health of the state of small businesses in this country, in your state as well.
Well, I tell you, the tariffs are terrifying them. Okay. We are right on the border with Canada. And when Trump was proposing these tariffs, there was a lot of apprehension. What will they be? And we started having roundtables, and everybody from farmers who are going to have to pay 25% more for their fertilizer to manufacturers who are going to get hit with the tariff on steel and aluminum to craft brewers. Okay, so it was small producers and bigger manufacturers, but small businesses. The tariffs are really a threat because we do so much trade with Canada. That's our biggest trading partner. And by the way, Joe, that's true for 34 states, so it's not just Vermont. But we've got huge tourism. So the two things that really, really have been hurting us, and I just met with the delegate from Quebec, is the tariffs are going to really threaten the bottom line, like of our farms and some of our manufacturers. But the second is the tourism is plunged. Yeah. We've got 40% less bookings for next year at the ski areas. And it's all because of the insults of the president calling Canada the 51st state and Governor Trudeau, that kind of thing. And, what's hard about that, Joe, is that, life is built on trust. And there's so many small businesses in Vermont that are back and forth with Canada, and it's a trusting relationship. And there's a feeling on the part of Canadians that we've betrayed them by belittling them. And that's heartbreaking. So a lot of these folks, in addition to the insecurity that they have about their business, and, we're small businesses, so that is a relationship they have with their employees. Are they going to be able to keep them on? There's this feeling that, wait a minute, I thought we were friends. Why are you belittling me? And, that's kind of gratuitous.
It's gratuitous. It's crazy. It makes no sense. Well, it does from his perspective. Peter, the tariff thing, on again, off again, way up here, then maybe 30%, then maybe 20%, it would strike me that for small businesses in your state, just the haphazard, chaotic way he's been doing this is tough.
No, it's brutal. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you don't know what the deal is going to be. And, I don't quite get this just on an emotional level that President Trump seems to enjoy chaos. And he does, but he's in charge, so he doesn't have to pick up the pieces. But what I observed in my own personal life, the more chaos, the more turmoil. I don't like that. That's not a happy place to be. And if I'm running a business and I've got this, and this is the thing, I know you feel the same way, Joe. Our employers, they really care about the folks who work for them.
Bingo.
Okay. And they're always worried about, hey, can I meet payroll? All right. That's a number one worry. Well, if in addition to worrying about it because of the usual challenges, they suddenly are getting hit with a tariff, then the tariff's off, then the tariff's back on, that just creates an immense amount of emotional stress and uncertainty. So I don't get it. I think stability is a good thing, not chaos is not productive.
Peter, do you think like Trump's being forced to cave on them, and if so, I mean, the damage has already been done, right?
Well, there's a lot of damage that's been done. Here's what I think about Trump. Number one, if we were having a rational tariff discussion, we'd say there's a place for tariffs. If you've got China, let's say, engaging in unfair trade practices and dumping underpriced, below cost products throughout the United States and driving out our ability to compete, you know what? I think a tariff is a reasonable response to that. On the other hand, if you have like Canada, and we have Canada and Mexico with U.S. MCA trade agreement, and it's working, and it's got mutual benefit, you don't declare a national security threat as though Canada is going to invade the United States and then use that as precedent to arbitrarily yo-yo folks around with the tariff. That creates an enormous amount of unnecessary hardship. So there's a place for legitimate tariffs, but not for arbitrary use of it, especially against our friends. And there is damage that's being done. But the other thing you see with Trump, and I think this is really in the long run going to completely erode his credibility. He starts big, 145% tariff against China, let's say, and he caves. That's the bottom line. He totally caves. And, he's totally backed down on China. All right. So, he lost. But yet there's still real problems with our major trading partners. Like Europe doesn't trust us. Canada is losing trust in us, and Mexico can't count on us. So, a basic proposition of anybody that's trying to get a hard thing done is that you want to get friends and allies to be on your side to get additional leverage. And what the approach that Trump takes is to essentially stick it up, stick it to his friends, our friends, and then we're more isolated and they see us as an adversary. So, frankly, the bluster that Trump has, it works if you're against a weak opponent, like say Vietnam. They caved on tariffs right away, right? But is that something our president should brag about, that this tiny country, with whom, by the way, we are having good relations after that horrible war, all right? And we're now disrespecting them by bullying them on the tariffs. But, he, quote, won on that. But when it came to the EU, they're telling Trump to, pound sand.
Exactly.
In China, the same thing. And Trump is caving and trying to present that as a big victory. But in fact, there's a lot of damage that has been done.
That voice and that handsome face, that's Senator Peter Welch from Vermont, the junior senator from Vermont, one of the best guys in the United States Senate. Peter, small businesses. Let's pound Visa and MasterCard. These two big giants, this duopoly. Explain to me, they own what we call credit card swipe fees.
Joe, I'm really glad you asked that.
What this is.
Okay, a lot of us have credit cards, right? And we use it. It's convenient. I have to say I was naive or just stupid. But when I use my credit card, I pay my bill each month so I don't have to pay those gargantuan interest charges. And I couldn't understand how credit cards make so much money because they don't make it off of me, right? They make it off the merchant. So every time I use my credit card, and number one, there's what's called a swipe fee. So you just use it, and the credit card company, Visa, MasterCard, gets like an amount of money for that. And then they get like 2% and sometimes up to 3 or 4% of the transaction. So merchants are getting hammered. They're the ones that are paying for this. And of course, they have no control over it. We're in a modern society, people use credit cards, and it is a duopoly. So Visa, MasterCard has brutal pricing power. And it's one of the things that's really hurting our small businesses, especially. I found out about this when I was at a country store. I was doing a congress in your community.
Yeah.
And it was one of these stores in Vermont. You had them probably in your district where
Uh-huh.
the couple, how many hours are there in a week? And that's about the number of hours they work, and they live above the store.
Yeah.
Well, I'm out putting gas in, meeting people, and he came out and he showed me the statement he gets from Visa or from the credit card stuff, where at that time when gas was $4 a gallon, it was high then. He had to pay more in swipe fees than he made on a tank of gas. Okay, so that's just not right. And of course, we in this country pay the highest credit card fees in the world. Okay, so in Europe, it would be like well under 1%. Here, it can be like 2, 3, or 4%. So that is because our government is not sticking up for small business and essentially saying, hey, wait a minute, this duopoly, you can't rip off our country stores, our retail establishments with these super high charges.
Peter, you testified at a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing back in November, and you said, like, even last year alone, it was, I could be wrong, about $100 billion in these swipe fees that
like 157 billion. It's more than that. They make an incredible amount of money. And by the way, it's not, inflation works for them, right? The higher the prices. So if you were paying, $40 or something, and now it's 60, that credit card company, Visa, MasterCard, gets extra money.
Yeah.
And, we do need credit cards or some system of payment that's reliable and secure. So they have to invest in technology, but it's not as though there's a lot of value added once you get that infrastructure in place. So they are doing what predatory, monopolistic market players do. They're ripping off consumers. And in this case, the biggest losers, the biggest victims are small businesses. And, Joe, the reason I'm so upset about that, our small towns are struggling.
Yeah.
And we need retail in our small towns. And they work hard and they have a low margin. And you're just seeing a lot of these monopolistic practices put like the super high credit card transaction fees. Like with pharmacies, they're getting these small local pharmacies are getting run out of business by these pharmacy benefit managers. And, it's not a red state, blue state deal, because all of us, whatever our politics are, we like to, go down to town and see our friends and get a cup of coffee and visit and be able to go buy our grandchild a Christmas present. All these things that just make life worth living. Is so much better when you have a vibrant downtown, whether it's a small or larger town.
So, Senator, the legislative answer to this is what?
Well, it's the Credit Card Competition Act that when I was in the House, I was the lead sponsor. Over here, Senator Durbin is, and I'm working out with Senator Durbin and Senator Marshall, by the way, from Kansas, the Republican, and he is doing an incredible job, very passionate about it. So basically, what we would do is what all these other countries do, and that is put some limits on the monopoly pricing power. My view is that we shouldn't be paying more in America than folks are paying in Europe and Canada for the same service. It's the same thing with prescription drugs. As you know, we pay for research, our taxpayers do, and then we get these drugs that are helpful. But we pay oftentimes 5 times the price for that same drug as what they pay in Europe and in Canada. So, we're getting ripped off here. And the role that those of us in Congress should have is to protect our consumers against ripoffs.
Yeah. The Credit Card Competition Act, you've been a champion of this for quite some time. Briefly, Peter, explain how it would inject competition into everything you're talking about right now.
Well, number one, it would give merchants the opportunity to use more than one
Got it.
transaction device,
Okay.
because that runs through the Visa MasterCard. Okay, so the other things that we would do that's the biggest thing that would create some competition and
Yeah.
choice. So if you have the processing infrastructure that allows another processor to come in, and Visa, MasterCard aren't going to be able to compel you to use their processor, okay? And it doesn't affect the credibility, or pardon me, the security that the merchant needs and the credit card industry needs. So
Yeah.
that's the big tool that would be, I think, helpful in driving down prices.
So we know this would be good and save a lot of money for small businesses. It'll save a lot of money for consumers. I'll ask the stupid question, Peter. The Credit Card Competition Act sounds like a no-brainer to me. So who's against it?
The banks are. Well, there's two groups, okay? One is Visa, MasterCard, because they make an incredible amount of money on their swipe fees. And then the big banks who issue the cards get a cut of the action.
Okay.
And they're really against it as well. The people that are for it are basically actually it's the retailers.
The retailers.
And a lot of these retailers that are the most vulnerable are the smaller businesses, not the Walmarts or say the Amazons that can actually negotiate because they've got some market power themselves. They can get a quote better deal. But frankly, I'm still getting upset about how much they're being charged because ultimately what they're charged, you and I pay for, right? And there's no justification for the size of the fees. Those credit card companies are doing fine in other countries around the world where there is more competition and more legal protection against predatory pricing.
Peter, two more, and I'm going to let you go vote and do the rest of your job. And you are a champion, Senator Peter Welch. You've been a champion for this issue, the Credit Card Competition Act, and retailers and small businesses. You've been pushing this for a while. Where are we at? What are the prospects for this bill?
Well, I think they're getting better and better because, some of the new Republicans, including folks around Trump, J.D. Vance was a co-sponsor of the bill before he left. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing is that some of my Republican colleagues are like Senator Marshall, and they're listening to folks in their districts. And bottom line is the banks and Visa, MasterCard have an immense amount of power. You ever hear of money in politics, Joe? I'm sure that. And they've got a lot of money, and they're pushing hard. But it's one of those things where if it's on the floor, it's pretty hard for a lot of members to justify to the retailers that we have in our districts, because it's all the same, to say, hey, wait a minute, we're voting no to give you some relief to these rip-off prices. So I think if we get it on the floor, and in the Senate, we may have a better chance. Senator Marshall is always looking for a way to get this as an amendment to whatever legislation is coming up. And there's more latitude to do that in the Senate than there is in the House.
From outside your body in the House, I'm going to use my platform to continually push the Credit Card Competition Act.
Appreciate that.
Peter, last quick question, only because your office tweeted something a couple hours ago that I retweeted that I absolutely loved. Different topic. Trump's in the Middle East right now, enriching himself personally. You just outlined kind of the date, the plane, the golf course, the golf resort, and then boom, Qatar gets this. Peter, I'm amazed. This just seems like open corruption, what Trump is doing, just right out in the open.
It is. No, it's very transactional. And everything about President Trump is that it's a transaction. And what's terrible about that, and the tariffs, by the way, are Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Because if you noticed, the tariffs on China before the cave-in by President Trump, Tim Cook from Apple called him up.
Yeah.
He got relief. Okay.
Yeah.
I have this small business in Vermont. They make these globes.
Yeah.
And they get parts from China, and they do about $1 million of business a year. She does not have Trump or Besson or Lutnick's telephone number.
Right.
So what you're seeing with these tariffs is not some policy that applies to Apple and to this globe manufacturer. It applies to you if you don't have the right telephone number to make the case. And that's what's so terrible. So it's an access economy as opposed to a competitive economy.
One of the best in the Senate, a champion for the average guy, the average gal, and for small business. One of the best guys we've got in Washington, Senator Peter Welch in Vermont. I love you, brother. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Joe. I do have to.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been The Social Contract.